Hello and welcome back to BioBen children. This is Deepthi and we have already completed chapter number 6 life processes. And in this video, we are going to start with chapter 7 control and coordination. So part 1 of control and coordination will be completed in this video, which includes the complete nervous system. I am breaking it into small portions so that it is easy for you to understand the whole chapter. The chapter is easy and interesting. So let's get started. Control and coordination actually means what? What do you mean by control and coordination? Whatever activities that are taking place in the body needs to be properly controlled by the brain, by the spinal cord, and what functions do they actually do in helping us to do various activities in day-to-day life, we are going to see in this chapter. So there are different kinds of neurons in our system and how the responses are being sent. All those things we will be seeing in this chapter. So let's get started. First thing is, what is stimuli? Whatever changes which are taking place in the surroundings of an organism is called as stimuli. Whatever is happening around us. So the way we are responding to it, that is a response. Okay, so stimulus is the change in the environment to which organism reacts. It can be any kind of heat, it can be any kind of sound or light or whatever it may be. And the reaction to the stimulus is called as response. All the living organisms have ability to respond to the stimulus. I hope it is clear. So stimulus and response is the first two terms you have to know in this chapter. Next is, we are going to see about control and coordination in animals as well as in plants in this chapter. So in animals, there are two types of systems, nervous system and the hormonal system. What are the two systems? Nervous system and the hormonal system. So what is the difference between nervous and the hormonal system is important question which has been asked in the previous exams, and it is there given in NCERT also. So have a note of this. Difference between the nervous and the hormonal system. Nervous system means what? The first point is the electrical impulses are passed via the neurons in the nervous system. As the nervous system term, it contains neurons in it. So the electrical impulses are being passed with the help of neurons in the nervous system. While in the case of hormonal system, what will happen? Chemical messengers. The chemicals are sent with the help of blood. So the chemical messengers are sent via the blood in the case of hormonal system. So hormones actually are the chemical messengers, while in the case of nervous system, electrical impulses are being sent with the help of neurons. The nervous system is having a short-term response. Whatever responses are created is a short-term response in nervous system, while in hormones create a long-term response in the body. The third important point is nervous system has a very fast response. It will respond very fast, very quick. Some responses, whatever is happening is because of the neurons, because the messages are sent very fast with the help of nerves. While in the case of hormonal system, it will happen very, very slowly. Okay, but it will last for longer time. If something which is having a bigger impact on the body, it can be because of hormones. So easy, nervous system and hormonal system. I hope it's clear to you. In plants, only the hormones are playing an important role. They don't have the nerves or the coordination. So in the case of plants, only the hormones help in coordination. Moving to the next. So we have to see the coordination in plants in detail. Now coordination in plants, coordination in animals we'll see first. Okay, in animals what happens is there are different kinds of sense organs present in animals body. Like us, we do have the sense organs, right? So what are the different kinds of sense organs we have? We have 5 different kinds of sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, skin, tongue. All those are the sense organs. So how these sense organs are sensing? They are sensing with the help of special type of cells present in them, which are called as receptors. Okay, the sense organs are able to sense the different types of senses with the help of receptors. So the receptors which are present in the eyes are called as photoreceptors. The receptors present in the ears are called as phonoreceptors. In the case of nose, olfactory. In the case of tongue, gustatory. In the case of skin, it is thermoreceptor. Okay, so photo means detect light, phono detects sound, olfactory detects smell, gustatory detects the taste, and thermo will detect the temperature. So these are the functions of receptors present in the sense organs. These two are very important. Please note it down because it is usually asked. The functions for the olfactory and gustatory receptor was previously asked. So you need to focus on the functions and where are they present. So sense organs contain receptors, and the receptors are the group of cells which are sensitive to a particular type of stimulus. It can be light, sound, smell, anything it can be. Now moving to the nervous system. So what are the functions for our nervous system? It will receive the information from the surrounding, interpret it and pass it. Okay, pass it further so that we can create a response to it. So passing the information from one system to another is the function for the nervous system. So all the other systems in our body are working together only because of the nervous system, right? What is the important unit or the structural and the functional unit of nervous system? Do you want to know? Yes. So the nervous system, they are made up of specialized cells. The specialized cells which are made in the which are present in the case of nervous system is called as neurons. Okay, so the neurons are the specialized cells which are present in the nerves. Specialized cells which are present in the nervous system are called as neurons. So it is the basic structural and the functional unit of the nervous system. And neurons are the largest cell in the human body. Largest cell in the human body, and they're adapted to carry the signals as well as the electrical impulses. Okay, so I hope it is clear. Now we are going to see the structure of the neuron and the function of each and every part of it. This is an important diagram which is given in NCRT. NCRT diagram I have taken for you to explain the structure for neuron. So what are the important parts? You can see a spider's kind of branch structure, right? A branch structure here, and that part is called as cell body. This part is called as cell body. The cell body contains the blue color structure is nucleus. The branches which are coming out are called as dendrites. The long tail-like structure is called as axon, and the ending of this axon is called as nerve ending. Right? These are the important labelings. There are some other labelings also which is needed. The axon is having a covering over it which is called as myelin sheath. What is it called as? Myelin sheath. And it is also having some gap in between. It's not a continuous thing. You can see there is one structure and there is another gap. So here we can find a gap, and that gap is called as node of Ranvier. So node of Ranvier is a gap through which the signals can easily jump and pass. From here, the signals can jump and pass easily through the gap. So we will see the functions. So what are the important parts? Nucleus, dendrite, cell body, axon, nerve ending. You can also remember myelin sheath and node of Ranvier. Now coming to the structure one by one. First one is dendrite. What is the function for dendrite? These are the cell extensions, which are the short branch structures which receive the information from the neuron, and they will pass it to the cell body. Okay, so first structure here is the dendrite. So dendrite is only receiving this information and it is passing it to the cell body here. Now, what is cell body? It is a portion of neuron that contains the nucleus. It will have nucleus, it will have the cytoplasm also. Okay, cytoplasm which is present in the nucleus, this cell body, the cytoplasm which is present in the cell body is called as the cytoplasmic region, axoplasm. Okay, now the axon, it will receive the information and pass it from the cell body to the other cell. So axon will receive the information or the message from the cell body and pass it to the other cell through this long, from here it has to go out like this to a long chain. So the message is passed to this whole axon. Okay, and how it is passed easily? It is only because of the presence of this myelin sheath the messages are passing. Otherwise there will be a break in the message. So it has to pass smoothly. That's why it is having a covering for fat and protein. Covering of fat and protein is myelin sheath. And finally, the messages reach the nerve ending. Okay, so nerve ending is the place where the messages are reaching at the end. Now, next is the gap which is present in the myelin sheath. The gap is called as node of Ranvier. What will happen at the end in the nerve terminal? Now I'm going to tell you. Between the two nerve cells, there's a gap which is called as synapse. Synapse is the gap which is present between the two nerves. So what will happen in this gap? No, the electrical impulse. I told you the signal, the message is passed in the form of electrical impulse. So at the synapse, it is getting converted into chemical impulse for the transmission. So what is happening? The electrical impulse is getting converted into chemical impulse at the synaptic junction. I will show you in the synapse in the next slide. Now here they have shown, here you can see the two neurons are in close contact. Here one neuron is there and I have shown another neuron and a muscle cell I have shown here. This is a muscle cell. Okay. So what is happening? The gap which is present here, this gap is called as synapse. So synapse is a gap which is present between the two neurons. It is present between the end of this axon or the nerve ending and the beginning of the dendrite, in between the both. So what will happen here, no? When the electrical impulse reaches here, some chemicals are stored in this end which has been released out into the synaptic region. And from the synapse, what will happen? These chemicals will go and activate the dendrite of the next neuron. And again, the message will pass like this. So the same way, when it reaches the end of the next neuron and finally the message has to be passed to the muscle fiber, again there will be a synaptic junction here also. Synapse will be present here also, which will release the chemicals and it will activate. So suppose if I am sending a message, if I want to send a message to my friend, I'm using phone and I'm sending. Whatever I need to type it has to reach my fingers, right? Then only I'll be able to type. So how it is reaching? The message is being sent by the neuron from one neuron to another neuron, and finally it is activating my muscle fiber in the finger so that I'm able to type it. So the way it is being sent is from dendrite to cell body, from cell body to axon, from axon to nerve ending, and finally from nerve ending to synaptic junction, and from synaptic junction to the next dendrite of the next neuron. So like that it will pass in very quick way. So in a very quick manner, it will be passed and the message has been transferring and reaching the muscle fiber. So I have mentioned here how the nerve impulse travels. Dendrite, you can show it as a flowchart also. Dendrite to cell body to axon, axon to nerve ending to synapse, and synapse to dendrite of the next neuron. So this is a way you have to draw the flowchart and explain the answer, right? So the synapse is the junction between the two neurons. Now we are going to see about the different types of the nervous systems, right? There are two different types of nervous system. The first one is the central nervous system, which I have shown here in the red color. First one is the central nervous system, which includes what? The central nervous system includes brain and the spinal cord. So in the body, whatever red color I have shown, this is brain and this long is spinal cord, right? The second type of nervous system is peripheral nervous system. Other than this, whatever shown in the yellow color is all peripheral nervous system, which contains lot of nerves in the periphery, in the surrounding. Okay, so there are different types of neurons which are present in the periphery. They are sensory neurons and they are motor neurons, right? So what do you mean by sensory neurons? As it senses some information, from the name itself you can understand, right? So it has to sense the information. From where it will sense? What they do. So here the function is sensory neurons, they will transmit the impulse from the receptors to the central nervous system. So the receptors, once they are sensing it, they will pass it to sensory neuron. And what do sensory neurons do? They will pass the impulse from the receptors to the central nervous system. So I have shown here with an arrow. So from sensory neuron, the message is reaching the central nervous system. From central nervous system, now what will happen? There are another pair of neurons. There are motor neurons. This motor neuron, what do? They will transmit the impulse from the central nervous system to the effector organ. So this is the effector organ which has to finally do some action at the end. What is present at the end? Whichever organ needs to react to the response or to the to respond to a stimulus, that is called as an effector organ. It can be muscle, it can be any other organ. right? So we are the last organ is the effector organ. So central nervous system consists of brain and the spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system consists of sensory neurons and the motor neurons. Sensory neuron will send message towards the central nervous system, and the motor neurons will send it away from the central nervous system to the effector organ. There is one more important neuron which is there, which is called as relay neuron. So what do the relay neurons do? They will link between the two neurons. They are linking between the motor and the sensory neuron. So the linkage between the two neurons is the relay neuron. It is also called as, it can be also called as interneuron, or it can also be called as an associated neuron. There are so many names for this neuron. Okay. So motor and sensory neurons are yellow in color, so they will come under peripheral nervous system, PNS, and relay neuron is a part of central nervous system. It's a type of central nervous system, that's why it is shown in the red color. So I hope it is clear. So with all these, it will be easy for you to understand the reflex action and the reflex arc. Got it? Now I have made a mind map for you to make it more clear, the parts of the central nervous system and the parts of the peripheral nervous system basically. So nervous system can be basically classified into two types. What are they? Central nervous system, and the second one is peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system carries the message to and from the central nervous system. Just now we have seen. Now this peripheral can be further divided into two types. What are they? Somatic and autonomic nervous system. Somatic nervous system will control the voluntary muscles. There are, now what is this voluntary and involuntary? Voluntary means actions which are in our control, which we want to do, like reading, writing, dancing, whatever is in our control, all these are called as voluntary actions, which is not in our control, like digestion, respiration, all those things which is happening unknowingly in the body, it is all involuntary action. Okay, so autonomic nervous system will control involuntary actions, and somatic will control all the type of voluntary actions, and it will control, like it will be controlling all the voluntary muscles or the voluntary actions and transmitting the information to the central nervous system. Okay, now the autonomic nervous system is further divided into two types. What is it? Parasympathetic and sympathetic. Parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic normally is working to make the body calm. Okay, in normal conditions, whatever activities are happening is because of the parasympathetic nervous system, where the energy is stored and conserved. Okay, we are not using the energy much, we are maintaining the level of the energy and we are conserving the energy. So normal situations, whatever is happening is because of parasympathetic nervous system. But in extreme conditions, when the body is under stress or under such extreme conditions, we have to use the energy. At that time, sympathetic nervous system plays a very important role. Suppose when we are entering into a dark room and we need to just we have to constrict our pupil in order to strain our eyes, we have to strain our eyes to see. In that case, sympathetic nervous system is playing an important role, right? So when we are straining or stressing something, at that time we have to use the sympathetic nervous system. Otherwise, in normal conditions, we use the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the somatic nervous system also can be classified into two different types. That is, they are having two pair of nerves actually. Based on the nerves, they can be classified. That is cranial nerves and spinal nerves. So cranial, as the name suggests, which is present in the cranium, which is coming out from the brain. That is cranium. What is coming out is called as cranial nerves. So how many pairs of cranial nerves we have? 12 pairs. And the case of spinal nerves, the nerves which are coming out of the spinal cord, there are 31 pairs of the spinal nerves which are coming out from the spinal cord. So you just have to remember the names and the numbers. Okay, and central nervous system, you already know it is classified into two types, that is brain and the spinal cord. You need to study about the brain in detail, which will be dealt in the next video. Okay, spinal cord will connect the brain to the peripheral nervous system. Right? So this is a complete mind map which can give you a gist about the nervous system, in which we have covered the half of the part of the nervous system. Now going into the spinal cord and the reflex action. So this is another important question which is every year asked. Very important. This is a very important question. What is the reflex action and what is reflex arc? Now both are somewhat related, right? Definitely they are related. So what is reflex action? Sudden involuntary action which is produced by the body. Sudden involuntary action in the body is called as reflex action. So this is generated by the body in response to some stimulus in the environment. Definitely. It can be suddenly if we are touching the hot pan or a nail is pricking into our legs. Something like that happens and suddenly we are removing it. That means that's a reflex action, right? So in the reflex action, the way the nerve it's passing, it is formed in the form of an arc, and that arc is called as a reflex arc. Reflex arc is formed in the spinal cord, and it, although the information input goes to reach the brain, but the main function is of the spinal cord. So this diagram again taken from NCRT. I'm explaining you, listen very carefully. So what is happening in the reflex action? Suppose my hand is touching the hot pan here. So what are the receptors which are present? The receptor which is present in the skin will detect the temperature. So they will detect the heat, right? So the heat has to pass through the neuron which is called as sensory neuron. I have told you prior itself, the first neuron which senses it is sensory neuron. Okay, so sensory neuron, what do it do? It carries the messages into the central nervous system. So this area which is shown is the CNS, or the central nervous system, which is containing spinal cord. So here the spinal cord, what happens? The messages from the central nervous system is being passed inside the spinal cord and it is being processed by the relay neuron. From sensory neuron, the message is being passed to the relay neuron. Now, relay neuron is the connection between the sensory and the motor neuron. So, relay neuron will pass the message into the motor neuron now. Now, motor neuron will get the message, and finally, the message will be passed to the effector organ. So, message from the relay has to reach motor, and from motor, what do we do? It is connected to the effector organ. Effector organ has to make the changes in the protein present in the muscle so that the hand is removed back. So what is happening? Once the message reaches or the impulse reaches the effector organ, the proteins which are present in the muscle cells will contract and will move the hand away from the hot pan. So this complete movement of the message, which is a very sudden involuntary action taking place, is called as reflex action. So you should know the pathway. So how it goes? From the receptor, the message is passed to the sensory neuron. From sensory neuron, it is passed into the motor neuron. Is it passed to the motor neuron? No. First, it is passed to the relay neuron, and from relay neuron, it is passed to the motor neuron, and finally, from motor neuron, the message reaches the effector organ. So this pathway, you have to remember it, and you have to write it once the question reflex action is being asked. Now in the next slide, with the help of a table, I have given all the components of the reflex arc along with the functions. So what is a receptor? The receptor receives the informations and generates impulses. The sensory neuron or the nerve is also called as afferent neuron. There is one more name which is called afferent neuron, which receives the information. So it carries information from the receptor to the interneuron or relay neuron. Now relay neuron, what do they do? Relay or interneuron, it processes the information and generates the response. The generated response has to reach the motor neuron. Motor neuron is also called as efferent neuron. So it carries the information from spinal cord to the effector organ. Now what is the effector organ doing? It is receiving the information from the effector neuron and shows the appropriate response. Whatever response it has to show, it will remove the hand, or whatever response has to be created, it will do like that. So basically, many children have the doubt, what is the difference between the nerve cell and the neuron? Okay, so neuron is a single cell. The nerve cell, a single cell is called as neuron. When they are grouped together, it is called as nerves. So basically, there is not much difference. You can use it as neuron or the nerve cell. Both are correct only, right? So single cell is termed as neuron, and the group of cells, nerve cells, are called as nerves. Okay, when grouped together, they are called as nerves. So here I'm ending today's video. Hope you liked it, and please subscribe to my channel if you have liked it. If you have any doubts, please put up in the comment box below. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.